Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about WWE. Let's start off talking about Karrion Kross. We are going to get into Monday Night Raw last night. We are going to get into Crown Jewel on Thursday. The King of the Ring, Queen's Crown Tournament, all that kind of stuff. But I do want to talk about Karrion Kross first, because this is such a... Karrion Kross is just his career on the main roster. As time goes on, it feels like it's going to be one of those things that either in 2 or 3 years he's really successful on, and they do a WWE Network special on Peacock where they say, man, wasn't the booking of Karrion Kross terrible to start off with? Or he ends up in AEW or back in Impact Wrestling, and they go, man, how they butchered Karrion Kross when he was on the main roster in WWE. Because the Karrion Kross saga continues when it comes to the changes to his character, the unnecessary changes, by the way, to his character, because WWE reportedly has more character changes in store for the former NXT champion Karrion Kross. Now, the current plan is to shift Kross's character on the main roster once again. This comes from a report by WrestleVotes on Twitter. Now, the idea is reportedly for Kross to be more of a, quote, psycho, yet still, quote, calm and cool. What? So you want this guy to be a crazy, psychotic man, but he's also going to be calm and cool at the same time. Right. So you're going to have someone that's completely opposite of each other. Okay. Now, it was noted that the Gladiator helmet is staying for now, so we're not getting rid of the Gladiator helmet, but for some reason, they're not bringing Scarlett up to the main roster to be with Karrion Kross. The former NXT champion is due for another change to his entrance as well, including new theme music. Now, Kross, of course, was picked by Monday Night Raw in the recent WWE draft, but he's not wrestled on Raw since defeating Jackson Ryker on September 27. He did defeat Ricochet on the October 7 edition of Main Events. Kross has also been featured in some Raw vignettes, and he's worked recent live events. He defeated John Morrison at last weekend's non-televised Super Show live event. So, it makes you wonder, well, it does make you wonder, it's pretty apparent what the situation is with Karrion Kross. They called a guy up. They had a guy that was the NXT champion, was undefeated in NXT, was doing... I mean, he did divide opinion, in fairness. Some people thought Karrion Kross wasn't all that he was made up to be honest, in NXT. And that's fine, that's fair, that's your opinion. But you had a guy that had something. And he had a gimmick that, for what it's worth, was doing well in NXT. And once again, and Karrion Kross is kind of becoming the sort of prototypical... He's the case study for what happens to people when they get called up from NXT to the main roster. Certainly in the past, the old version of NXT 1.0, as opposed to NXT 2.0. He's the case study of what's happened in the past and what's bad about it. Is they'll call someone up like Karrion Kross because they'll look at him, and when I say they, I mean Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, the creative team, etc. They look at him and they go, man, there's a guy with size, he's got a look about him, he's got this presence about him, he's doing good stuff in NXT. I have no idea about the character because I don't watch the product, and that's Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard. I don't watch NXT, I think NXT sucks, so I don't watch that. He's got a look though. Let's bring him up to the main roster and we'll figure it out. We'll do some changes because you've got to change. You have to change for the main roster, right? It's a much bigger audience. We have a different audience. You saw it in the documentary, right? Remember when Keith Lee made his Raw debut? Or one of his first appearances on the main roster, and they have a clip of him going backstage and talking with Vince McMahon. He goes, oh, it's great stuff, pal, great stuff. But, we'll have to do some tweaks, some changes. We've got a different audience. We've got a more broader audience. And that's what they're doing with Karrion Kross. They look at him and they go, he's got something about him. Don't like the character. Let's change the character. And the problem is with that, it's a character that as fans, whether you watch NXT or not, but you certainly know of it on social media and you know of Karrion Kross, or you've seen him maybe not all the time, but certainly frequent enough to know who Karrion Kross is and the character. You see that and you become emotionally invested in that character because you've been told to for 18 months. This character's great. He's a badass. He's undefeated. He's dominant. This is the guy. This is the guy. This is the guy. That when he gets called up to the main roster and basically you're then told, whilst you're emotionally invested in the character, you're then told by WWE, that old gimmick sucked. This new one's different and he's changing because he's on Raw and it's a broader audience. And now he's much, much better because he's wearing suspenders and a mask. Oh, I've got to really invest in the character now. You feel like I wasted my time. Well, I'm not going to get emotionally invested in this character again. I like the old version. And not a lot of people like changes. People are resistant to change. So why are you constantly changing things that don't need to be changed? Why are you trying to fix things that aren't broken? And that's kind of this, that Karrion Kross, like I said, is the case study for what's wrong, or certainly was wrong in the past, when it comes to WWE and their developmental process. And the frustrating thing for me, and this happens so often, it feels like it's way more frequent in the last few years. I could point out to a million different examples, like Shorty G is another example. These kind of gimmicks where you see it play out on television, you take one look at it and you go, that gimmick sucks. That gimmick is not going to get over. I'm not saying this like I'm the expert at pro wrestling and I know everything, because I don't. I'm a fan. But you can see a gimmick like that and you go, that sucks. That's not going to get over. People don't like it. And then what happens? It doesn't get over. People don't like it. And then they change it. And that's what they're doing with Karrion Kross again. You know, he comes out with this new gimmick. He doesn't have Scarlett there, which was part of the package in the first place. Oh, he don't have Scarlett. We're going to make you dress up like a gladiator and wear suspenders. And people look at it and go, why? And then they decide to change it, go, that's not working. I know, it's the entrance. It's the entrance. It's the entrance. That's the fault. It's the entrance. That's what people liked about Karrion Kross at NXT. If even people that didn't like Karrion Kross at NXT, they would say, well, he's got a cool entrance. He's got cool entrance music, and he's got a badass entrance when it gets all black and white and grainy, and Scarlett comes out and she sings the song and all that kind of stuff. People like that. People like that. And it's just, that's how backwards the creative process is in WWE. Is that they'll bring him up to the main roster, change his aesthetics, which everyone will go, why? There was no need, and the new aesthetics suck. Why isn't Scarlett there? And then when they wonder why it's not getting over, or they wonder why people complain, they go, it's got to be the entrance, because the entrance is the only thing we haven't touched. We've touched everything else, and we're geniuses, right? We're part of this big creative process. Oh, our track record's perfect. It can't be the suspenders. It can't be the mask. Oh, no, it can't be that. No, it's got nothing to do with that. That's our idea. Our idea's good. It's the entrance. It's the entrance that's the problem. That's what we haven't done. That's an NXT thing. So we've got to change that. And now he's going to be a psycho yet still calm and cool. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Now, obviously, we haven't seen this play out, and I know people roll their eyes when you say, let's see it play out. I'm willing to see what it is out of morbid curiosity, but I just have no faith, no faith. And I feel bad for Karrion Kross. I really do. And I know people will say, why do you feel bad for the guy? He's making more money than he's ever made before. And he's on the main roster and he's wrestling live events. Right, that's fine. But the reason I feel bad for him is, where is the longevity in that? Because what they'll do is what WWE does time and time and time again. They do this. Vince McMahon does this with all of these names he brings up from NXT, like Keith Lee. They make changes. Oh, there's something missing. We'll make changes. We'll make changes. We'll make changes. And all of these changes, nobody eventually cares, because it's been so far removed from what they originally once were that Vince McMahon goes, oh, they can't get over. Obviously, there's something wrong with them. I wash my hands of the whole situation. Not my fault. And then they just languish in the mid-card, and then eventually they get released. And that's the reason I just have no faith, because it's the definition of insanity, right? If you don't learn from your mistakes, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expect different results, making changes, and then you wonder why nobody gets over, it's dumb. It's just dumb. And that's my issue. So when I saw this, I went, of course they got to make changes. It's just, I don't know. I really don't know. Rant over. Let's talk about Crown Jewel. Of course, Crown Jewel is on Thursday. Now, we did a story yesterday, didn't we, talking about some possible spoilers for Becky Lynch and Big E when it comes to their championship matches at Crown Jewel. Well, there's a bit more of an updated version, I guess, of this story when it comes to Crown Jewel. So spoilers ahead. Here, if you do want to not be spoiled, it's not a confirmed spoiler, it must be said, it's potential spoilers, but if you do want not to be spoiled, you can go to the next story. There's chapters on this video. Now, Crown Jewel, of course, is set to feature 4 championship matches, but according to Cage Side Seats, a title change is unlikely. According to Cage Side Seats, no titles are expected to change hands at the pay-per-view, which of course takes place on Thursday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, the title matches on the show include Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Brock Lesnar. Not a surprise that the Universal Championship isn't going to change hands there. I didn't think it was going to change hands there. Again, I know some people said, oh, they could do this layered switch of having both the Universal Championship and the WWE Championship change hands. I don't think they will. I don't think Roman Reigns is dropping the championship anytime soon. We know that. So that's not a surprise. The interesting thing about that match, honestly, is the way that it's going to be laid out. We're going to have a Brock Lesnar dominating match. We're going to have a Roman Reigns dominating match. And how are they going to get to the finish of having Roman Reigns retain the Universal Championship? We're going to see Paul Heyman turn on Reigns. We're going to see Paul Heyman stick it to Brock Lesnar. What are we going to see? That's really, I think, the interesting part of that one. We've also got the WWE Championship match with Big E defending against Drew McIntyre. As I said, not surprising that Big E would retain there. Drew McIntyre's on SmackDown. That comes into effect 24 hours after Crown Jewel. So unless he's taking the title with him to SmackDown, Big E's retaining. So that's the situation there. The Raw Tag Team titles are on the line, as well as RK Bro defends against AJ Styles and Omos. This is a rematch, of course, from SummerSlam. So again, we ain't seeing a title change there. That's not surprising. The only other one, which is kind of surprising that they don't switch the title, is Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. But that shouldn't be too surprising now, considering you saw the outcome last night on Raw. Charlotte Flair retained the Raw Women's Championship. She's going to SmackDown. And there's nothing they're going to do to change that between now and Friday, unless, of course, they have some kind of thing happen at Crown Jewel, which, according to this report, isn't going to happen. So I guess they're going to do what they did last year with the New Day and the Street Profits and just switch the belts. Charlotte Flair will come out on Friday, and instead of her belt being red, it will be blue. Then Becky Lynch will come out on Monday, and instead of her belt being blue, it will be red. And I think that's what they're going to do, which I'm not a fan of. I think it's creatively lazy. But then I've just been saying about them making changes about Karrion Kross being psycho yet calm and cool. I have no idea what goes through the mind of Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and that creative team. I'm done with that creative process. So it shouldn't be a surprise. But it's still going to be a good event. As I mentioned before, sometimes predictable doesn't necessarily mean bad, but we'll have to wait and see when it comes to that one. Speaking of Crown Jewel, we know the King of the Ring and Queen's Crown final is going to be taking place there. One name in that King of the Ring final is Xavier Woods, because Xavier Woods has edged closer to achieving his dream of becoming the King of the Ring after defeating Jinder Mahal in the semi-finals of a great back-and-forth match on Raw. It was a good match, actually. Now, the former tag team champion previously defeated Ricochet in the first round to set up his match with Jinder Mahal. After a very back-and-forth 15-minute match, Xavier Woods connected with his top rope elbow dive and secured his spots in the tournament's final. Now, obviously, he's going to be facing Finn Balor in the final. We saw an appearance by Balor on Raw last night. It was quite interesting, wasn't it, when he's there? Like you can see, like there with the scepter and the crown, and he was doing the Finn Balor stuff. It was all fun. As far as who do I think is going to win that one, it's tough. It's a tough one. I will give WWE credit in terms of the final they've booked is a tough one to call, because realistically, in terms of being a bigger star, and certainly a single star, Finn Balor should probably win that match. But on the flip side of things, Xavier Woods has always said he wants to win the King of the Ring. And if you don't have him win it, you're going to, certainly piss off quite a few people on social media. They'll want to see Xavier Woods win it. So there is drama there. It kind of goes into what I'm going to talk about in a second. But the King of the Ring matches have been fine, but WWE, for what's like a really historic tournament, especially on the women's side of things, it feels like it just doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything. This kind of does go on to my next point. So the King of the Ring final and the Queen's Crown tournament finals have been set for Crown Jewel. So as I mentioned, the finals of the 2021 King of the Ring tournament and the inaugural, remember this is the first Queen's Crown tournament as well, is now official for Crown Jewel. Now, as I mentioned, Xavier Woods defeated Jinder Mahal in the semi-finals, so he's going to be facing Finn Balor on Thursday to determine the King of the Ring. Raw, this was the surprising one, featured Doudrop defeating Shayna Baszler, that's real, in the semi-final. So the final of the first ever Queen's Crown tournament is going to be Doudrop versus Zelina Vega. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I'm stunned by that. I'm absolutely stunned by that. We've been critical of WWE's booking of female talent recently, specifically on SmackDown, but the Raw Women's Division is the same. This is the first ever Queen's Crown tournament. The tournament, it's the inaugural one. It's the first ever winner. It's meant to mean something, and it feels like it means nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. And I don't mean this as a slight to Zelina Vega. I don't mean this as a slight to Doudrop. I'm a fan of them both, but WWE has given us no reason to care about either performer in the last 2 or 3 months. Doudrop's just come in. She's been feuding with Eva Marie. As a fellow Brit, I obviously support her work, and I'm a fan of Piper Niven. I think the gimmick she was given sucked, and she's making the best of it, but it's very cringe. The music she comes out to, and she's doing the dance and all this kind of stuff. It's like, Zelina Vega, she only just started winning matches. She came back after the whole unionization thing, which, again, people criticize her for, but I think we have to criticize the culture more, in fairness. But she comes back, she loses pretty much every match, and now suddenly we're meant to believe she can win a tournament to become the first ever Queen's Crown tournament winner. Are you kidding me? I think Doudrop will probably win, I think. You know, I guess from a believability point of view, you would think Doudrop's going to win. But again, it's just a case of like they've just given us absolutely no reason to care. And we were so excited about it. People have been talking about the Queen of the Ring or the Queen's Crown tournament for years. For years. People have wanted to see this tournament. And it's almost a case of be careful what you wish for, isn't it? Because we've wanted this for years and years and years. Oh, I'd really like to see a Queen's Crown tournament, or Queen of the Ring, right? Which is what it should be called. Queen of the Ring. We want to see it for years and years and years. It'll be so great. It'll be so good. And what we've been given is like, it's like we ordered the Queen of the Ring off Wish.com. It's like, well, it is the Queen of the Ring, but it's not been great at all, and we've not been given a reason to care. And the people in the final, you know, Zelina Vega's been losing forever, and Doudrop's just started, and the gimmick, again, it sucks. The name sucks. Even with the King of the Ring as well, like, I get it, Xavier Woods has wanted to win it for years, but just putting the throne and the crown and the scepter on stage for both Raw and SmackDown doesn't make it mean anything. You know, make it mean something. Have great matches. Have a bigger tournament. Don't just start off with 8 people in and go, well, we'll see what happens. No, make it bigger. Make it mean something. Spread it out. It's just, and that is just, again, it's a case study of what an issue is with WWE nowadays. And people will probably criticize me here, say, you're moaning too much, Joe. You're moaning too much. You want the King of the Ring, and then you're such a bad fan because you want these things, and then you get given it and you complain. Well, you complain because what you wanted you didn't get, and when you do get it, it doesn't live up to the standards that it should. It should mean something. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, again, I think Doudrop probably wins the Queen's Crown tournament. As far as the King of the Ring, I think that's harder to call. I don't think that the match itself will be very good, but they haven't given us a reason to care, in my opinion. Speaking of Raw, of course, next week's Raw is the season premiere of Raw since the new rosters are officially in place. Now, next Monday's post-Crown Jewel edition of Monday Night Raw will be the season premiere on the USA Network. WWE confirmed last night that next week's Raw will be the season premiere episode airing live from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. This will mark the 30th season of WWE's flagship television show. As you can see right there, we've obviously got all of the new names on the roster. They did air a couple of vignettes on last night's show. This included vignettes for Bearcat Keith Lee, Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens. Again, there's new graphics and all this kind of stuff coming soon. So we might have a bit of a shake-up when it comes to Monday Night Raw, the season premiere of Raw next week. But it does humor me when they go, season premiere of Raw, like there are seasons. And why is the season premiere coming in October? Surely it should come after WrestleMania or the beginning of the year or something like that, right? It's a ratings thing. But I think Raw, certainly coming out of the draft, did way better than SmackDown, no doubt about it. And hopefully it makes more Raw a more watchable product because, again, watching Raw last night, I'm a pro wrestling fan. I do a pro wrestling channel. I talk about pro wrestling news. I've been a pro wrestling fan since I was a kid. But I watch Monday Night Raw and I'm just bored to tears. I'm just bored of that show. And I don't know. Hopefully they can change it around. But like I said, I'm so skeptical when it comes to WWE and the way they produce television, their creative process at this point, that I watch Raw, and like I said, I'm just bored. I'm just bored of that show at this point. Speaking of Raw, we're going to have what they're calling a retro Raw. They previously used to call it old school Raw, whatever it may be. That's going to be happening next year. WWE is set to hold a retro Raw episode soon. It was reported yesterday by Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast that the next special retro Raw episode will air in January 2022. There's no word yet on the exact date for the return of retro Raw or where it will be held, but we will keep you updated, of course, once that's confirmed. WWE previously held old school Raw episodes on January 6, 2014, March 4, 2013, and November 15, 2010. I really liked the old school Raw episodes when they first did it. So when they first did the first old school Raw, it was 11 years ago at this point, which is crazy. But it was in November, and it was great because you had the old Raw set back and the old guardrail and just everything. It was a nice throwback, and it worked. It really, really worked. And then, like with anything, just over time, it just became something different and not as good. And look, the last time they did anything like retro was the Retro SmackDown episode earlier this year. Remember that? SmackDown's going to be retro because Fox was doing something that week where everything was retro. And it was awful. Like, the episode itself was fine, but as an effort of WWE going retro, it was awful. Like, it was, they didn't change anything. They had Michael Cole and Pat McAfee wearing blazers, and that was about it. That was their effort for going retro. It was the lowest effort possible to go for a retro edition of any show. Like, people thought, they're going to bring the fist back, are they going to do this, they're going to do that. They had a 3D graphic of the fist and went, oh, it's the fist. It's not the fist. It's computer generated. It's pixels. That's not the fist. And so hopefully they make a better effort when it comes to that. I don't know. They're for ratings, and they do draw ratings, so that's why WWE does them ultimately. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go to the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.